Welcome back to the final installment of our Holy Week devotional series, Toward the Dawn. Throughout this week, we have slowed down to reflect on the events leading to the cross, devoting ourselves again to the Lord, the true center of the Passion story. The drama of Holy Week will soon reach its climax on Good Friday and Resurrection Sunday, and we would love for you to join us at South Rock Christian Church Friday at 7 o'clock as we gather to remember Christ's sacrifice, and Saturday at 5 or Sunday morning at 9 or 10:30 to celebrate his victory. Today, though, is Maundy Thursday. The word Maundy comes from the Latin word mandatum, meaning commandment. It refers to the new command Jesus gave his disciples at the Last Supper, to love one another as he had loved them. And he demonstrated that love in a shocking way, by washing the disciples' feet. But to appreciate that moment, we have to remember the expectations surrounding Jesus just days earlier. It was Passover, the most sacred feast in Israel. Jerusalem would swell with pilgrims, perhaps as many as 3 million people crowding the city. News had spread rapidly that Jesus of Nazareth was coming to the feast and that he had recently raised a man named Lazarus of Bethany from the dead. Excitement filled the air. And as Jesus entered Jerusalem, crowds lined the road shouting, "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the King of Israel." Their words carried deep meaning. When they laid palm branches before Jesus, they echoed the welcome given to Simon Maccabeus centuries earlier when he entered Jerusalem as a conquering hero after defeating foreign occupiers. The cry Hosanna meant save now, something like saying God save the king. The people expected a warrior who would crush Israel's enemies and restore political glory. But Jesus was indeed a king, just not the kind they expected. And that truth became unmistakably clear a few days later. On the night before his arrest, Jesus gathered with his disciples for a meal. The streets of Palestine were dusty and dirty. Travelers wore simple sandals, and when guests entered a home, a servant typically washed their feet as a basic courtesy. But that night, no one volunteered. The disciples were busy imagining something else entirely. Luke tells us they were arguing about who would be the greatest in the kingdom that Jesus was bringing. They were thinking about thrones, but Jesus reached for a towel. John tells us Jesus rose from supper, he laid aside his outer garments, and taking a towel, tied it around his waist and began to wash the disciples' feet. The King of Kings knelt in front of his followers and washed the dirt from their feet. Here, we meet a king whose scepter is a towel. Pastor Darrell Johnson points out the 4 truths revealed in that towel. First, the towel represents Jesus' entire mission. His life was not about grasping power, but giving himself away. From his birth to his final evening, Jesus led by serving. Second, the towel reveals Jesus' understanding of true royalty. Peter was horrified. "You shall never wash my feet," he protested. Kings do not kneel before their subjects, but Jesus was redefining what kingship truly looks like. Third, the towel points forward to the cross. When Jesus told Peter, "You do not understand now, but afterward you will," he was pointing to what was about to happen. The humility of the towel foreshadows the sacrifice of Calvary. And fourth, the towel becomes the mark of those who belong to the King. Jesus said, "If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet." Followers of this King fight not for status, but for the privilege of serving first. But that night held another powerful moment. During the meal, Jesus took bread and wine and gave them to his disciples, saying that his body would be broken and his blood poured out for the forgiveness of sins. Forgiveness was central to everything Jesus was about to do. There's an illustration that captures the beauty and difficulty of forgiveness. At Hamilton Grange in New York City, visitors can tour the historic home of Alexander Hamilton. Guides explain his achievements as a Revolutionary War hero and as their first U.S. Treasury Secretary. But if the walls could talk, they might tell a deeper story about Hamilton and his wife Eliza. After Hamilton's public scandal and the devastating loss of their son, their marriage was nearly destroyed. In the musical Hamilton by Lin-Manuel Miranda, there's a quiet moment when the couple walks together after their grief and betrayal. The cast sings a simple question: forgiveness, can you imagine? It's powerful because forgiveness feels almost impossible when we've been deeply hurt. And yet forgiveness is exactly what Jesus secured on Maundy Thursday. The bread and cup reminds us that through the blood of the new covenant, our sins are forgiven. The debt we could never repay has been canceled. When we realize how much the King has forgiven us, something changes. We become people who can forgive. Not because justice doesn't matter, but because mercy has already been shown to us. As we continue toward the dawn, Maundy Thursday reminds us that the kingdom of Jesus moves in ways the world rarely understands. The King conquers through sacrifice, the King rules through service, and the King restores through forgiveness. The disciples expected a throne. Instead, Jesus picked up a towel. And tomorrow, he will pick up a cross. But beyond the cross, the light of resurrection is already beginning to break. So today we ask ourselves two simple questions. Where might God be calling us to serve like our King? And who might God be calling us to forgive? Because those who follow the servant King carry both a towel and a forgiving heart. And as we walk this road together, remember that even through the darkness of the cross, we are moving steadily, faithfully toward the dawn.